So to continue the teachings on Medicine Buddha practice, I'm going to start now where we have finished saying the refuge prayer and engendering bodhicitta. And now we have the consecration of the place and the materials of practice. It begins with kadak lona ne. The English translation is, from the expanse of primordial purity, a cloud of offerings, including mandalas, the articles of royalty, and goddesses, are emanated, filling the earth and the sky. May it be inexhaustible. Puja Ho. Now, ordinarily, we view ourselves and others and our environment as being impure. We see ourselves and others as being ordinary. And the same thing with the environment. So we do this to change our perception to become what is called pure perception. Another way of saying this is to see things as they really are. And this means that we are the deity, an enlightened being, that other beings are also enlightened beings, and that this is a pure land. This is acknowledging that everything is pure, including the three poisons, including even our negative actions of body, speech, and mind. So this is not engaging in a fantasy, but actually the fantasy is our confusion and seeing the way we have been seeing from the beginningless beginning, seeing things through the eyes of confused perception. So that is what the function is of this stanza. We are imagining that we are practicing in a completely pure realm, filled with every kind of pleasant offering substance. Clouds of offerings are emanated from the primordially pure expanse, from emptiness. They fill the sky and the earth. This is the Dharmadhatu, another way of explaining emptiness. The Dharmadhatu is the sphere of phenomena. Everything arises from the Dharmadhatu. It has been there from the beginningless beginning. The Dharmadhatu will always be there. It is completely pure. So with this phrase, we are acknowledging things as they really are. The offerings are made by offering goddesses. The offerings are inexhaustible. They are perfect. This is looked at as being a starting point to purifying our impure perception of our environment, our impure perception of our body and our mind, and of all the other materials and implements in our environment. So then the next phrase that is chanted, it begins Drokun Deiden, and this is the four immeasurables. The actual translation is, may all beings be happy and without suffering. May they abide in the unimpaired happiness and in equanimity. The most important of these four immeasurables here is equanimity, but it is traditionally mentioned fourth or last. And these are called immeasurables, or the four immeasurables, because they are limitless love, limitless compassion, limitless joy for limitless beings. And with impartiality, it is to have these three for all beings without distinction to a friend or enemy, those that are close, those that are distant. A longer version of the four immeasurables that is actually more common is, quote, may all sentient beings possess happiness and the causes of happiness and well-being. May all beings be free from sickness. In this case, we are talking about the medicine Buddha, so we have sickness here. Ordinarily, it is all kinds of suffering. So here it's may all beings be free from sickness and the causes of sickness. The third is empathetic joy, rejoicing in the well-being of others and their freedom from illness. And then equanimity, you have the same amount of love and compassion for all sentient beings without exception. Equanimity actually has to be practiced first. If we do not have equanimity, our love and our compassion and our sympathetic joy are incomplete, and as a result, they are impure. Now, this doesn't mean that we see everybody as being the same. We actually see differences. We will see differences actually quite precisely. And actually, these differences then mean that we will express our love and our compassion differently to different beings. So we are making this aspiration that we can have equanimity and then love, compassion, and sympathetic joy for all beings, wanting them to be free of suffering, and in this case, free of sickness and free of disease. So one detour that we need to avoid, I just mentioned, and that is that we need to have love for equally for all beings or else as our love for some grows, we develop aggression and resentment towards those that we see or perceive to be causing pain to the ones that we love. We could start seeing victims and predators. And so we have to avoid that. Another detour is to see the suffering of the world and to feel powerless. With the internet, the suffering of the world comes right to our screen. And sometimes that can be somewhat overwhelming. And you just feel that there's nothing you can do about it, and you get depressed and don't do anything about it. So it's important to understand that through practices like the Medicine Buddha, we can actually benefit other beings. And other practices we can do will benefit beings. So it's important to develop empathetic joy for others before you start practicing, and maintain it the best you can while you are practicing. And this will help keep up your motivation to do these practices. And Thrangu Rinpoche says that there will always be a result from doing this Medicine Buddha practice, but the way the result will manifest is, in his words, indeterminate. The result may not manifest in the way that you expected or desired. So we need to have a long-term focus when doing this practice, and actually any Buddhist practice, and not expect immediate results. And this is where faith comes in. And it's important to have faith in the practice as being effective, faith in the Medicine Buddha, and faith in yourself as being able to do this and be beneficial for other people. So the next part after this is the visualization. And it is the visualization of yourself as Medicine Buddha that causes the blessings to enter you. The front visualization is the object of our supplication, and this allows us to accumulate merit by making offerings to it, and so forth. So on my text, on page 6, the visualization begins, and we start by purifying our perception of our bodies, our mind, and the entire universe with the Om Svabhava mantra. The entire mantra is Om Svabhava Shuddha Sarvadharma Sabhava Shuddho Ham. Frequently Hung. There's a difference in the Sanskrit and the Tibetan pronunciation of the Sanskrit. That's all that it is. So Sabhava, that means nature. Shuddha means pure. Sarva is all. Dharma means phenomena or things. There are many different definitions of Dharma, by the way. Another is, of course, the teachings of the Buddha. And then Swabhava Shuddho is pure by nature. Shuddho Ham is short for Shuddho Aham, which means the very embodiment. So on page 29, Thrangu Rinpoche defines it this way, quote, "Not only are all things pure in their nature, but they are in and of themselves the very embodiment of that purity." So with this mantra, we're stating the way things are. We just don't see them the way they are because of our confusion. We're not creating something that doesn't exist. This mantra is used in many, many, many different places in Vajrayana deity practice. So it's important to understand its meaning. And that is what that mantra means. Following that, the Tibetan continues, Tongpe Nidu Gyur, which means everything becomes emptiness. And that is basically repeating in Tibetan the meaning of that mantra. We're acknowledging that things have been from the very beginning empty in nature. So this is what we're doing here, is acknowledging that things have been empty from the beginning. And this does not mean that everything disappears. But what happens next is the second stage. After acknowledging emptiness and primordial purity, and that is from the expanse of emptiness, the pure realm and the palace of the medicine Buddha emerges. So then it goes, beginning with Tongpe. From within emptiness, the 3 billion world system appears as the realm and the palace of beauty. That is the medicine Buddha's celestial palace. This 3 billion world system is, let's say, it's an interesting term. And what it means is frequently described as what we would now call a galaxy. That this would be a system that includes 3 billion worlds in it. And as I said, it's frequently defined as being a galaxy. Not the entire universe. The universe is incredibly vast in Buddhism and in Western astronomy. But from this appears the realm and the palace of medicine Buddha. And so there are 2 visualizations here. One is the self-visualization of yourself becoming Medicine Buddha, and then a front visualization, which can be a simple one of just Medicine Buddha, or a more complicated one of Medicine Buddha and his entire mandala. Thrangu Rinpoche says, for beginners, it's fine to just visualize having the Medicine Buddhas in front of you. But it is better to include the entire front visualization because you will accumulate more merit. Now, it's important to remember, again, the most important thing is to have the sense of the presence of this front visualization, whether it be simple Medicine Buddha or his entire mandala, even if you cannot visualize everybody present in the mandala, and to have the sense that you are Medicine Buddha too. If you have doubt, that really counteracts the effectiveness of the practice. These visualizations are made out of light. They are not solid. They, you could say, are like a hologram. Traditionally, they talk about like a rainbow in the sky or the reflection in a mirror. So this is important to remember. I've heard Rinpoche, Khenpo Karta Rinpoche, talk about in Tibet where it was not uncommon for yogis to go off into a cave and practice for months or years, that some would say that there wasn't room in the cave for their visualization. They couldn't visualize Amitabha on top of their head because the ceiling of the cave was too low. There wasn't room. And of course, that's solidifying things. So no matter how small the room that you are practicing in with this practice, there is plenty of room for the front mandala, Medicine Buddha, Celestial Palace, and for you. So from this realm, the Dharmadhatu, the Medicine Buddha, and his palace emerge. The palace is square, symmetrical. It has 4 large gateways in the 4 directions. A simple visualization would be yourself, this palace being where you are right now, sitting on your cushion. And if you're doing the complete front visualization, there'll be another palace in front of you and slightly elevated. The text goes on, Senge. The English is inside it on individual lion thrones, lotuses, and moons are blue hungs. The seed of myself and the principle of the front generation. So in the center of the palace of the self-visualization is an 8 snow lion throne. What this means is the throne is square. It has 4 sides, and on each side are a pair of snow lions facing each other, and they kind of appear to be supporting the top part of the throne. The throne is made out of gold and jewels. The snow lions represent utter fearlessness, the utter fearlessness of the Medicine Buddha. complete freedom from fear and danger. On top of the throne is a lotus with a moon disk on it. This is a white lotus, a white moon disk. In the palace in front, in the center of it is a 16-petal lotus. And on top of that 16-petal lotus is an 8-petal lotus. In the center, of course, of that 16-petal lotus. And in the center of that lotus is the 8-lion throne with the lotus and the moon disk on top. On top of both lotus and moon disks of the front and the self-visualization is a blue hung. And this represents the essence of wisdom mind. The hung is the sound of dharmata. Quote, the expression as sound of the nature itself. This hung is going to be in Tibetan script, and it will be in the text. It's blue because that's the color of Medicine Buddha. But blue also represents that which is unchanging and unfabricated. Like the sky, the blue sky. From both hungs, rays of light radiate in the 5 colors, but primarily blue. And on the tips of these light rays are innumerable offering goddesses with offering substances. The rays go to all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas who receive these offerings, and as a result, their non-conceptual compassion is aroused. The light returns to the hungs with the blessings of all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and absorbed into them. Once again, light radiates from these hungs to purify the entire external world, to purify everything that could possibly harm or cause suffering of any kind, purifying anything that would cause disease, purifying the mental continuums of all sentient beings. The light returns to the hungs and is reabsorbed, and the syllables instantaneously transform into Medicine Buddha. Now you are Medicine Buddha. And in front of you is Medicine Buddha. The text says, from these arise Menla, who is below, radiating light rays like Lapis Lazuli. He is adorned by the 3 Dharma robes. So he is a color of Lapis Lazuli. He is majestic, luminous, radiant, and light radiates constantly from his body. Lapis lazuli is a precious stone or a gem that is deep blue in color, and it has been highly prized for millennia. Interestingly enough, that historically the major source of this mineral has been Afghanistan, and it exists in the present. It is found in other parts of the world, but it's most predominant in Afghanistan. The medicine Buddha is peaceful. He is in Nirmanakaya form and has the 3 robes of a monk. So he will be wearing the same robes that Shakyamuni Buddha wears on his sculptures, his rupas, and the Tanka paintings. The difference is that Medicine Buddha is blue, and Shakyamuni is usually painted as being a golden color. The text continues, Chakye Chojin. His right hand holds the Arura with the mudra of supreme generosity. His left holds a begging bowl in the mudra of even placement. So he has 2 arms. His right hand is in the gesture of supreme generosity, which is that his wrist is on his knee or slightly below his knee. His palm is facing outward, a symbol of giving. And he holds an Arura plant. Sometimes that is translated as myrobalan, myrobalan. This is a medicinal fruit, and it is considered the best medicine. So the fruit and the gesture symbolize eradication of all suffering, especially suffering caused by sickness and disease. This is within relative truth because it uses causes and conditions or interdependence to eradicate illness. His left hand is palm up, resting in his lap. And this signifies meditative stability. And that meditative stability represents the eradication of sickness, all suffering, and the very root of samsara itself through the realization of absolute truth. So his right hand represents relative truth, his left hand represents absolute truth. He holds a begging bowl in his left hand, and that symbolizes contentment. It is the lack of contentment and the addictive nature of samsara that causes sickness and suffering. So the begging bowl symbolizes overcoming that discontent and resting in contentment. The next phrase is, he is completely adorned by the major and minor marks. He is seated in Vajra posture. This means that he has the major, the 32 major and 80 minor marks of a completely enlightened Buddha. So he is identical to all the other Buddhas. It's just his color and the aurora that he holds that you might say sets him apart. He sits in Vajra posture, indicating that his meditation is completely stable and unshakable. These 32 major marks and 80 minor marks, I'm not going to list them. Thrangu Rinpoche doesn't list them either, but some of them are the elongated ears, the having this suctor or this protrusion on top of his head, having a sign of a wheel on his palms and the soles of his feet, and so forth. There are many others, a total of 32 major and 80 minor marks. So he has all of them, again indicating he's a completely enlightened Buddha. On page 7 begins the front visualization. Tupwang La Sok is how it begins. On the petals of the front generation, in particular, are the 7 Buddhas, such as Munindra and Dharma books. So in front, we have the same celestial palace with 4 doors in the 4 directions. And there is an 8-petal lotus with Medicine Buddha sitting in the center of it on a small lotus and white moon disc with the throne with the 8 lions. There are 8 petals on the lotus that sits on. On this 8th petal, which is going to be facing you, is a collection of Dharma texts. And it is the Dharma that liberates us. So in this case, this Dharma includes primarily the Medicine Buddha Sutra and the commentaries on the Medicine Buddha Sutra. Also, there are texts that include the teachings on the 3rd and the 4th Noble Truths. These are especially important because it is these 2 Noble Truths that lead us to liberation from samsara. The first truth, the 3rd truth is the truth of cessation, and the 4th Noble Truth is the truth of the path that leads to cessation of suffering. Now, on the 7 other petals are Shakyamuni Buddha, and then the 6 other Medicine Buddhas. Munindra is one of the 6 other Medicine Buddha brothers. They are not named, just Munindra is named. But these 6 plus the main Medicine Buddha are considered the 7 Medicine Buddha brothers. So then, continuing with the Tibetan, Degyap Sempa. The translation is surrounding them on 16 petaled lotus are the 16 bodhisattvas. So in the center of the 16 petal lotus, the previous visualization is centered. And then around on these 16 petals are 16 bodhisattvas that were present when the Buddha gave his medicine Buddha Sutra teaching. Now these bodhisattvas are in Sambhogakaya form. And the medicine Buddha is in Nirmanakaya form. So it's good to make a distinction here. Nirmanakaya means the actual physical body. So the medicine Buddha, his body is human in form, very human, except for the color. And the 32 major and 80 minor marks. And the same with Shakyamuni and all the other medicine Buddha brothers. But here in Sambhogakaya form, these deities, they might be anthropomorphic, but they are not, what would I say, in completely human form. They will have the elongated ears and a suctor and so forth, but they are adorned not with robes, but with jewelry, silks. Frequently their upper part is wearing jewelry, but is not totally clothed even. But these 16 bodhisattvas were the main recipients of the Buddha's teachings on the medicine Buddha. So now what we have so far is we have the 8 Buddhas and 16 bodhisattvas for a total of 24 enlightened beings who reside in pure realms, and now we have requested them to come, and they have. To continue with the Tibetan, Daegyap Jikten, we're now inviting the worldly beings to come. So the text continues, surrounding them are the 10 guardians of the world and the 12 great chieftains with their retinues. So now there are 22 other main deities that are within the palace, and they are beyond the 16 petal lotus. To the medicine Buddha's right are the 10 protectors of the world. And 2 are mentioned, Brahma and Indra. They are protectors of the 10 directions of the world. And the 10 directions are the 4 cardinal ones, the 4 intermediate ones, and up and down. They form a semicircle to the right of medicine Buddha. To the left of the medicine Buddha are the 12 Yaksha chieftains, and they are protectors of the teachings. They have vast retinues, and so do the 10 protectors of the world. There are 4 more of these worldly protectors to come. So on the bottom of page 7, Goji La Gyal, at the 4 gates are the 4 great kings. Now these 4 great kings stand outside the palace, by each of the four gateways. And the four gateways face the four directions. They are the four guardian kings, and they are protectors of the Dharma in general. These four guardian kings are frequently found painted on the walls of monasteries, Tibetan monasteries, on an exterior wall by the main entryway. They are not this way at KTD, but many places will have these painted by the main front door, symbolizing that they are protectors of the four directions and the entry into the monasteries. These 24 deities reside in God realms of samsara. They're not enlightened. If you wonder what a yaksha looks like, by the way, all you have to do is Google Raksha and then click on images, and you'll get plenty of images. The important thing is to just have the feeling of their presence. These very fierce protectors. It's important to understand the meaning of what you're doing, why you're doing it, and so forth, rather than have really clear, concise, complete visualizations. Thrangu Rinpoche says that anytime you think of Medicine Buddha, he is actually present. And so have confidence that the Medicine Buddha is present, that you are not engaging in a fantasy. So at this point, he says that we're probably having doubt and feeling that it is a fantasy. So on page 37 here is a quote. Buddhas are omniscient. Whenever someone thinks of them, brings some to mind or supplicates them, they are aware of it and respond with their compassion and blessings. So when you think of Medicine Buddha, he is present in your mind and in front of you. So for this reason, we invite the actual Medicine Buddha and the other deities to come and dissolve into our front and self-visualization. This is an additional step to help dispel our clinging to our ordinary impure form in an ordinary impure way of viewing phenomena. So by visualizing yourself as Medicine Buddha, you're acknowledging your Buddha nature and acknowledging that at some level you, at some point in the future, you will attain this level. So now we have inviting the wisdom beings. This helps counteract all doubt about the authenticity of our self-visualization and the front visualization. So from the three syllables, in the three places of all, and from the hung in the heart, light is projected. This invites countless yeshivas from their individual Eastern Buddha realms. So what we have here is the best you can visualize in the forehead of yourself, Medicine Buddha, and all the other beings in the front visualization, a white Om inside the crown of the head, a red Ah inside the throat, and a blue Hung in the heart center. And these syllables radiate light to the pure realms of the 8 Buddhas and the deities of the Manala reside. These are the enlightened beings. The light is 3-colored, but predominantly blue. It goes in the east direction. You are facing east in Vajrayana. Whatever direction you are facing is considered east in Vajrayana. So if you are facing south, if you had a compass, you are still considering the way you're facing to be east in the world of Vajrayana. And then finally, it says they dissolve into the self and front visualizations. So the light invites the actual deities, and they dissolve into yourself and the front visualization. What has happened is that before this, we have visualized ourself and the front visualization as what the Tibetans call the Damsikpa, or a Samaya Sattva. And now these Damsikpas, or Samaya Sattvas in Sanskrit, radiate light and actually invoke the real, the actual wisdom beings who come and then dissolve into you, and you become inseparable, like water being poured into water.